name is Melissa Isaak. And my question, I would say, over the past decade, having conversations with people who don't come in my office, they're not clients, but speaking about what you have so eloquently coined, the boy crisis. How there seems to be there's a movement against men, where men are being criminalized. A lot of men and women will say, well, I grew up without a dad, and look at me, I turned out just fine. So what would you say in response to comments from people who think that dads are not that important because, look at me, I grew up with a dad and I'm just fine?
Yes. Thank you. Anybody have any thoughts on Melissa's comment? Yes, say your name and come up to the microphone.
My name is Dwayne Houston.
Is it Dwayne or Wayne?
Dwayne.
Dwayne.
Anybody that is delusional, should I say? Or
what was the word you used, Dwayne?
Delusional, or having
right.
some sort of thoughts that are different, they're going to believe their own reality. So, sorry. So that's what kind of the stuff that we get involved is. We're all dealing with really a mental health problem. The divorce industry, a high conflict divorce, is a mental health problem. And when people are saying these things, and they have their own reality. And that's what the world that they live in. So that's why, to your answer, is that they have their own reality, and now it's mental health's responsibility to say, no, this is reality and this is not reality. So.
Thank you, Dwayne. Anybody else have a comment on Melissa's comment? Say your name.
Amanda Buxbaum.
Amanda, come on up here and use this microphone.
Related to that, the reality comes from the other parent. So if the child is missing the father, it will be the mother who's creating that reality. And if the child is missing the mother, it will be the father that's creating that reality. And they're often not doing as well as they say. I've had personal experience of a child who stopped going to high school and started taking drugs and started having problems. And she said she was just fine. The reality is that the father told her that she was doing just fine, against all evidence.
Thank you. And any one more comment, and then I'll make my comment on this? Okay, I'll comment. So a couple of categories that I see. One is that there really, some children do grow up without a dad and do okay. In fact, there are some children that do extremely well without dads, but they nevertheless, so for example, Barack Obama had very minimal contact with his dad. Bill Clinton had very minimal contact with their dad. But oftentimes when you see people that succeed, oftentimes they are people who overcome enormous barriers to succeed, and their strength, whatever it is, their genes or whatever was inside of them, that allows them to overcome enormous adversity. Allows you to see that most autobiographies are people who either came from great privilege and great advantage, or conversely from great disadvantage. And because they felt like they would never be paid attention to, they would never be heard unless they succeeded. Oftentimes they were emotionally sick inside and emotionally enormously yearning for attention, and to prove that they weren't the loser that people thought that they were and said that they were, or bullied like that they end up succeeding on the outside. But as we often know, that the good die young, meaning good performers often die young. They're often people that are so into needing to perform that they are they're drinking or doing drugs or things like that to cope. So that's one. So two dimensions of that. Some people, some boys and girls without dads do okay, and do okay both emotionally and in terms of outside success. Others are successful, but in fact are enormously vacant inside. What I found in doing the the research for the boy crisis that I'll talk about more or less tomorrow, is that in the 56 developed nations where boys were doing badly, the two things that they had in common were number one, that the developed nations had much more permission for divorce, and number two, they had much more permission for children to be raised without dads, and to be single moms. And among the ones where the boy crisis resides, were in those two groups, within the percentages of those two groups where the children of divorce did not have significant father involvement, and the children of single mothers that did not have significant father involvement. The boy crisis, I found, resides where dads do not reside. And that's statistics. That's the percentages of it. But then I started asking myself the question, well, why? What's so important about what dads do that brings something to the table that moms don't do? And I'll share tomorrow a little bit more about the differences in dad-style parenting versus mom-style parenting, and why it is so crucial for dad and mom-style parenting to both be in coordination with each other, to have checks and balance parenting. But why we don't have checks and balance parenting, one of the reasons is that if a dad reads a parenting magazine, there isn't almost ever anything in a parent magazine explaining why dad-style parenting is so important to a child. What is dad-style parenting? You don't even see articles on that. And then how to negotiate with your wife or your future ex-wife, or your past ex-wife, dad-style parenting, and its value. So that's the important, the future, hopefully future not ex-wife, on that. The very bottom line summary, in answer to your question, is that children that do not have significant father involvement do worse on every single one of 70 different major developmental factors. And if you have the boy crisis with you, take a look at the Appendix B if you want just a quick 5-page summary of all those factors, and then the explanations in the book are much more in-depth, but at least that will give you, to someone who's a skeptic or a judge who's a skeptic, and just Xeroxing those pages and never worry about just ripping those pages off or out. I don't care. They're for that purpose. Give them to the judge and let the judge know before you make a decision to eliminate me, Dad, from your child's life. Just take 5 minutes to look at this. Thank you for your question, Melissa. By the way, I got to know Melissa a little bit before. Melissa runs probably, in my opinion, one of the most important, valuable contributions in terms of a law firm. She doesn't just represent dads. She bought a home to have dads be able to have a place for children to be, while the father is going through a place where the mother says, well, I can't have the father be involved with the child. He only has a little apartment. And so she bought a whole home for children to be with their dads in and to visit their dads at, and has a whole series of other social services that go way beyond just representing the father. Services that, providing them, sometimes allow the father and the mother to get back together again and therefore not need to use her law firm. And this is the type of attorney that I hope that every attorney in this room will become. Thank you.